Ma'am, what is going on? Hello? Hello, ma'am.
All right. Um, Today we'll start doing the one second. Today I'll introduce the topic. We are going to cover questions on PYQs based on Indian physiography that we did before, and then later on we move on to doing the India drainage systems. मेरे पास ये है. Later on we'll start doing India drainage systems. Okay, meaning reverse करेंगे हम basically. All right, here we begin, or we'll wait for a few moments. All right, question 125. Which one of the following is the northernmost river basin of the Deccan Plateau? Options are Chambal, Mahi, Narmada, Tapti. Chambal is going to be the river with the northernmost drainage. Here we are. Chambal, Mahi, Narmada, Tapi. Na? This is Chambal for you. Okay, this is the river Chambal for you. तो ये रहा उसका drainage basin. ये रहा उसका drainage basin, and this is Chambal ka river drainage basin. Okay, this is Mahi over here, still south. This is Narmada. This is Tapi. Okay, so Chambal ka drainage basin is the northernmost of all of these. Okay, so we go with Chambal. हम Chambal के साथ जाएंगे. All right. Okay. So my option answer is going to be in Chambal. Okay. Next one. Which of the following pairs of Himalayan passes and ranges in which they are located are correctly matched? Okay. Your options are Zojila, Great Himalayas, Banihal Pir Panjal, Fotula Ladakh, and Khardungla Karakoram. जोजिला ग्रेट हिमालयाज में है क्या? हाँ है. हाँ, गो देयर. जोजिला ग्रेट हिमालयाज का था. बनिहाल पीर पंजाल का है. हाँ, वो राइन भी करता है ना. रिमेम्बर हमने सोचा था वो राइन करता है. सो बनिहाल पीर पंजाल रेंज का है. फोटुला, फोटुला कहाँ मिलता है? डू यू फाइंड दैट इन लद्दाख? नो. फोटुला कहाँ मिलता है हमको? जस्कर, जस्कर में होता है. फोटुला इज इन जस्कर. ओके. एंड वेयर डू यू फाइंड खरदुंगला? ख मैंने आपसे कहा था लद्दाख में जाता है वो. ओके. खरदुंगला इज इन लद्दाख. सो ये दोनों मैच नहीं करते. ओके. So we'll go with only 1 and 2. He said 1 and 2 match करता है. C is going to be our option. सिर्फ 1 and 2 match करता है. Okay? ठीक है? Next one. In which of the following states Rupkund Lake is located? Kerala, Manipur, Himachal, Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand, absolutely. Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand is the place. Famous ट्रैक है रूपकुंड ट्रैक. द लेक इज फेमस बिकॉज उसमें सारे स्केलेटन्स पाए गए थे. बहुत हाई ऑल्टीट्यूड पे है, तो रूपकुंड की वो स्पेशलिटी हो गई है कि ब्रिटिश लोगों ने वो स्केलेटन्स डिस्कवर किए थे. देन वी हैड दैट थ्योरी कि सब लोग शायद वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 के प्रिजनर्स या पीपल सोल्जर्स वगैरह होंगे. बट दैट्स नॉट ट्रू बिकॉज द स्केलेटन्स, द एज ऑफ द स्केलेटन्स रैंक्स ओवर, आई मीन रेंजेस ओवर अ लॉट ऑफ years. ऐसे बहुत पुराने पुराने से skeletons भी है. So we figured कि people died out of natural calamities over there. There is no famous mystery over there. Probably died of natural calamities, and they died over a period of time, maybe through rainfall or hail storms or something like that. Okay, that is what we are discovering. And different races and ethnicities were also found over there. So that's the Rupkund Lake. Now consider the following statements about physical features of India. The first point is the southern point of the Peninsular Plateau is formed by the Nilgiri Hills, where the eastern and western Ghats meet, and the Cardamom Hills may be regarded as a continuation of the eastern Ghats. Both are true? दोनों correct है? अच्छा. हम पहला स्टेटमेंट कंसिडर करते हैं. सदर्न पॉइंट जो है ऑफ द पेनिनसुलर प्लेटो इज फॉर्म्ड बाय द नीलगिरी हिल्स. वी से ईस्ट ईस्टर्न घाट्स जहां मीट करेंगे, दैट इज गोइंग टू बी द नीलगिरीज. हाँ, वो पॉइंट नीलगिरीज मानते हैं हम लोग. कार्डमोम हिल्स किस हिल्स का पार्ट होता है? ईस्टर्न या वेस्टर्न? वेस्टर्न घाट्स का पार्ट है ना. तो वी कैन नॉट कंसिडर दैट एज अ कंटिन्यूएशन ऑफ द ईस्टर्न घाट्स. हमको सिर्फ स्टेटमेंट 1 कंसिडर करना पड़ेगा. Which of the following statements is not correct? Area-wise, Madhya Pradesh is the 4th largest state in India. Hornbill Festival is celebrated in Nagaland. Gujarat state contributes 7.9% to the national GDP. And Telangana is situated in the Deccan Plateau in the central stretch of Indian Peninsula. First, absolutely. हमारे states का ranking क्या होता है, people? What is the ranking for the states? सबसे ऊपर राजस्थान, फिर Madhya Pradesh, then Maharashtra, then Uttar Pradesh. That's the general ranking, right? Remember जब छत्तीसगढ़ and मध्य प्रदेश दूर नहीं हुए थे, जब हमने उनको separate नहीं किया था, divide नहीं किया. Oh, sorry. When we had not divided Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh used to be the central provinces. Na? Oh, sorry, Madhya Pradesh. Na? It used to be the largest state in India. Okay, way before 2001. Madhya Pradesh used to be the largest state before we went ahead and divided into Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. Okay, so clearly this first statement won't hold true. Hornbill Festival is celebrated in Nagaland. We've been doing it since what now 2010 or something से celebrate कर रहे हैं हम लोग शायद उसे. The reason being कि Nagaland has many major tribes. So they have some 16-17 major tribes. And the general idea is that all these tribes can come together, showcase their culture, mingle with each other. And, if there are any problems or any issues, then we can sort them out together. That's the general idea. Okay, that's why we celebrate Hornbill Festival. Gujarat state contributes 7.9%. It holds true for the year that this question was asked. Okay, the year in which this question was asked, Gujarat did contribute 7.9%, which is the state that contributes the most to India's GDP. Maharashtra, without a doubt. Maharashtra is the state that contributes most to India's GDP, and followed by Tamil Nadu. Uske baad you have Uttar Pradesh, followed by Karnataka, and then Gujarat. That's the general contribution of the states towards GDP, India's GDP. And Telangana is situated in the Deccan Plateau in the central stretch of Indian Peninsula. Yes. Deccan Plateau में situated है Telangana. We already discussed कि Telangana is part of the Deccan Plateau along with the northern Deccan Plateau, जिसको हम कहते हैं. तो you have the Chhattisgarh Plains, the Gadjat Hills, you have Telangana Plateau, and then of course and above that you have the Dandakaranya Plateau, and then to the left you obviously have the northern Maharashtra Plateau. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Moving forward, you go to which of the following is the narrow belt parallel to the Shivalik foothills where streams and rivers coming from the mountains deposit heavy materials of rocks and boulders. Bhabar is going to be the plain. We say going to be in that plain where clearly it is the narrow belt just below the Shivalik foothills, just next to the Shivalik foothills. The larger streams and rivers come down. They will deposit all those huge boulders right at the base of the foothills. Okay, and then the rivers or streams, if they are not large enough, they are not proper channels, they will disappear within these boulders and re-emerge in the Terai belt. Okay, the belt that is ahead of it, the belt that is south of that. Okay, so they'll re-emerge in the Terai belt. And then, of course, Bhangar and Khadar are the old alluvial plains and the new alluvial plains. Okay, so we'll go with here our answer is going to be Babar. तो वहां से निकलते हैं बड़े बड़े boulders होते हैं ना, they disappear within those boulders because they are huge rocks and the streams are just going to drop from a quite a steep slope, right? Himalayan slopes are pretty steep, so even if they're dropping from the Shivaliks, the slopes are steep, so they drop there along with the rocks and the boulders. The water also drops there, and the water doesn't usually accumulate there. It will go way below, and then it will emerge wherever it finds the capacity to emerge. So Terai becomes a very marshy, wetlandish, boggish kind of a belt. Okay, you don't find it doesn't have proper demarcated channels or streams through which the water flows. And hence the vegetation, hence the wildlife. That is how it follows. Okay, in India, rigid and stable elevated lands, denuded rocks, series of scarps are features of which of the following? Northern mountains, peninsular plateau, northern plains, coastal plains. कहाँ मिलता है आपको? Rigid and stable elevated lands चाहिए. You have denuded rocks, meaning clearly it is an older thing. Peninsular plateau. Makes sense, it is going to be the peninsular plateau. Okay. And series of scarps. You will clearly, those flatlands kind of a thing, you will find multiple plateaus which look like a staircase. That is going to be the series of scarps. Okay. That's going to be the peninsular plateau. Which of the following is a crater lake in India? Lonar, Sambar, Chilika, Vemnad. Lonar Lake. Lonar Lake is famously a meteorite that fell on the earth. The earth's crust created an impact. Water, collected in that, and that's the story of Lonar Lake. Okay. Where is Sambar Lake? Rajasthan. Rajasthan. Okay, it is the largest inland lake. Is it a freshwater lake or is it a saltwater lake? Saltwater, brackish water. Okay. What about Chilika? Odisha. Okay. Is it a coastal lake, inland lake? Inland lake? Coastal lake. It goes and meets the Bay of Bengal. I can tell you, I've been there. So it goes and meets the Bay of Bengal. So it is a this lake, but of course it is connected to the land. That makes sense. This lake has this. It's the largest lake in India with the speciality that area-wise, and with the speciality that it turns freshwater during the monsoons when it rains a lot, and it turns into a saltwater lake during the summers when it evaporates a lot. Okay, so that's the general idea. Vemnad, where is it? Kerala. Vemnad is in Kerala. Okay, the longest lake in India. We consider that the longest lake in India. We have different names for it. It is called as the Kunnamada if you are in Alippi or Kuttanad region, and it is called Kochi Lake in Kochi or Ernakulam region. Okay, that's what the lake is known as. Am I pronouncing it right? Okay. Okay. Which one? Which of the following pairs of old names and new names of islands? यार ये तो ना बहुत weird है. In India is correctly matched, right? You have to match the island and the names, new names that were given to it. Ross Shahid, Neil Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Dweep, and Havelock is going to be Swaraj. मैंने आपसे कहा था उसके इस टोन syllables को match कीजिए. Ross was Bose. Okay, Ross became Bose. Neil became Shahid. The E sound is repeated. And Havelock became Swaraj. The verse sound is repeated. Okay, only third matches. Only the third one matches. This is famous. This na we Havelock ke liye you have those coral reefs are very beautiful over here. It's very well known for those underwater huge coral reefs that we found over there. Okay. So we are going with 3 only. That's going to be our answer. Only 3 matches. Okay. Remember, Ross became Bose, Neil became Shahid, and Havelock became Swaraj. Loktak Lake is situated in the state of Manipur. Manipur, famously situated in the state of Manipur. Okay. Which of the following is known as uplands of Delta region? Bef, Bills, Pe, ya Charis. Uplands of delta region, meaning if you are in the deltas, then clearly because of the deposition of the silt and alluvium, if you find some kind of uplands or islands that are formed, so what will those be called as? Uplands of delta region. Chars, bills, pe ya bef. You think it is bills? तो फिर चार्स किसको बुलाएंगे और माशी लोलैंड्स को क्या बुलाएंगे? वी आर सेइंग कि जो माशी लोलैंड्स होते हैं, दिस इज ना वेरी टिपिकल इंडियन रीजनल ज्योग्राफी का है अभी तो गूगल तो मुझे बताता है ऐसे कोई वर्ड ही नहीं है. This is going to be Chars is going to be the uplands, okay, in a delta. Bills is going to be the marshy lowlands, okay, we say those are the marshy lowlands. And पे जो होते हैं ना उसका एक एक्सप्लेनेशन है मेरे पास यहाँ पे भी. सी वो क्या बताते हैं ना, पे जो होते हैं दे आर लोकलाइज्ड फ्लैट और लोलैंड फीचर्स क्लोजली एसोसिएटेड टू द वाटर चैनल्स और एक्टिव डेल्टा रीजन्स. ओके, दैट इज व्हाट दे से दे आर. Whatever makes sense to you, because I have scoured books and stuff. I have not found a diagram for it. Okay, I'll look for one. I have another reference book, I'll look for it, but then this is typical. ये सिविल सर्विसेज प्रिलिमिनरी के क्वेश्चंस है, ये आपके क्वेश्चंस नहीं हो सकते. एंड बेस्ट के लिए नॉर्मली दे आर लो वेट और माशी डिप्रेशंस जो आपको हायर पैचेस में मिलते हैं. अपलैंड पैचेस में इफ यू फाइंड एनी लो लैंड डिप्रेशंस, तो दोज आर यूजुअली कॉल्ड एज बेस्ट. ओके, ठीक है, दैट इज द ओनली एक्सप्लेनेशन आई फाउंड सो फार. All right, so we'll go with chars, huh? D chars. We go with uplands are called as chars. Which of the following are the major coral reef areas of India? Gulf of Kutch, Gulf of Mannar, Lakshadweep, and Andaman Nicobar Islands. आपके पास चार ऑप्शंस में से आप टैली कर सकते हो कितने. यू कैन चूज योर नंबर. सी 1, 2 and 3 अंडमान निकोबार आइलैंड्स में होंगे. Oh, Andaman Nicobar Islands, I told you, they are famous for being volcanic islands and being volcanic in origin, but they famously have all those fringing reefs. There are 571 islands over there, some 571, 572 islands, out of which almost all those islands have some sort of fringing reef, okay, fringing coral reef. So some coral reef formation you'll find over there. In fact, Andaman Nicobar, if you consider the area itself, Andaman Nicobar becomes the largest coral reef region in India, simply based on the area. If you're looking at the area only, then Andaman Nicobar Islands happen to have the largest coral reef area overall in any region in India. Okay, so we'll go with all four. We already have discussed कि Gulf of Kutch, Gulf of Mannar, Lakshadweep definitely have corals, and so does Andaman and Nicobar. So we'll go with all four. Area-wise, it should be Andaman Nicobar first, okay, then Lakshadweep, then Kutch. Then Kutch has a larger area, and then finally Mannar, okay. And Gulf of Mannar के coral reefs इतने famous थे कि we went ahead and formed the first marine national park over there. Our first marine park was formed over there, Marine National Park. Okay, so that is the story. हो गया. Which brings us to a very important topic, which is India drainage. They love asking you questions on rivers, तो आप ना उसको अच्छे से देख लिया कीजिएगा. Okay, so we are looking at the drainage system. Within this chapter, what we have essentially, at least for today, we'll try to see what a drainage system is. We'll try to get a general idea or definition of a drainage system, and then move on to drainage patterns. Okay, what different types of drainage patterns we find. And then later on, we'll go to the four major drainage systems of India. We're looking at the Himalayan drainage, out of which we'll consider three rivers, the Indus, Ganga, and the Brahmaputra. Okay, then the peninsular drainage, all major rivers in the peninsular plateau. And then the east flowing rivers and the west flowing rivers will be considered separately, because UPSC prefers to ask you questions key out of the following four rivers, which are east flowing or which are west flowing. Okay, so that's how we'll cover them. River regimes is a very how do you say, very small topic. It doesn't matter. We are just trying to see what is the periodicity of the flow in the river. The river regimes usually mean when is the river at its peak, when is the water level the highest, and when are the water levels dropping, during which seasons, and for what causes. We are usually looking at that. Okay, so this is what a drainage system is. When you talk of a drainage system, you are saying you are talking about the flow of water through very well-defined channels and demarcated channels, and the network of such channels is what you call a drainage system. Okay, so when you talk of the Ganga, you know clearly that the Ganga flows through a very specific channel, a very typical channel. You will have shifting of courses and stuff like that, but there is a channel to which the river keeps most of the time, okay, except in the monsoons. Then clearly there is the Yamuna which is coming and joining, and the Yamuna has multiple tributaries, so those come along with it. Okay, then and along with the Ganga, there are multiple other tributaries of the Ganga and their tributaries and so on and so forth. Okay, so we are looking at this network of such channels is what we are going to call the drainage system. Okay, so a river is never just a single river by itself. When we consider the drainage system for a river, we are going to consider all the tributaries and their tributaries and so on and so forth. Okay, take it. Now, the drainage pattern of an area is an outcome of the geological time period. Usually, the more older the land is, the more graded the river is. Okay, graded money, deeper the river is, more closer it is to the base level. Okay, nature and structure of rocks. If the rocks are hard, clearly the river tends to cut downwards. Okay, that is what the river will try to do. It will try to cut downwards. If the rocks are soft, the river usually tries to cut sidewards. Lateral erosion is more of a possibility over there. Okay, topography, whether you have to consider whether it is hills or plains or plateaus, what sort of topography is the river flowing through. Okay, that also defines what kind of a pattern, drainage pattern the river will usually emerge as. Okay, slopes of the land. If it is a gentle slope, you can be sure that the river is going to flow slowly. So clearly lateral erosion is a thing. If the slope is very steep, then clearly the river is going to flow very fast. It will flow down swiftly. So it will be downwards erosion. Okay, down cutting karega river. Amount of water. The amount of water usually dictates what kind of floodplains the river will form, how much, whether it will tend to remain within its channel or not, how much erosion will the river perform. That is the kind of stuff that the amount of water dictates. And periodicity of flow, meaning, once again, like we discussed a river regime, right? That when is that time of the year when the river usually has a large amount of water, and when is that time of the year when the river usually has less amount of water. In India, especially if you stick to the other than the Coromandel coast, if you stick to any other part in India, you are going to say that during summers, or during monsoons, the rivers will usually have great amount of flow, a good amount of flow. Okay, and the flow keeps on drying up as and how we approach summer. During summer, clearly the flow goes down. Okay, so that's generally the thing. So drainage system refers to the origin and development of streams through time, whereas drainage pattern jo hota hai, it means the spatial arrangement. How are the tributaries meeting? How their tributaries are meeting them? At what angles they are meeting? Through what topography they are meeting, so on and so forth, and what sort of geometrical shapes are being formed by that. Okay, by the river and the tributaries all together. That network, what sort of shape it makes. That is the drainage pattern. Do you understand the difference between it? A system is actually the river and its tributaries together. The pattern is what it looks like. Okay, just like what patterns mean. Pattern is what the whole thing is going to spatially look like. अगर आप उसको ऊपर से देखेंगे तो कैसे दिखेगा वो? That's what a pattern means. ठीक है? So these are your various drainage patterns. I have rarely ever seen UPSC ask you questions about drainage patterns, but they tend to veer into these nowadays. So we'll just look at it once. Okay, dendritic pattern is the one that you study dendritic roots and stuff like that. No? So we know कि वो roots के जैसा जो दिखता है. It resembles branches of a tree and everything. See, this is the main river. Okay, so this is a Ganga. Ganga is a very famous example for dendritic drainage pattern. We say this is the Ganga, and then all these tributaries are meeting it in the middle. Okay, so all these tributaries meeting it like this, like the branches of a tree, is essentially what a dendritic pattern looks like. Okay, a radial pattern is going to be clearly outwards, like a bicycle का wheel जो होता है उसके जो multiple spokes ऐसे हर तरफ जाते हैं, like the radius. Okay, so you're saying कि essentially you have to look at a peak or a hill or a mountain, and the rivers are going to have their source at the top of the mountain. Okay, so when the rivers come down, what is it going to look like this? Okay, that is essentially what a radial pattern looks like. So the most famous example for this in India is going to be the Amarkantak range. Okay, when Narmada, Son, Johila, and all emerge. Then next you have the trellis pattern. Okay, you've seen those rose trellis in gardens. The rectangular ones where you have those rectangular ones where you can see clearly that there are parallel lines on which you grow the roses, and then there are those which grow perpendicular to it. Okay, that sort of. Okay, we'll see what a rose trellis looks like. And this kind of thing, we are essentially looking for this kind of thing. That is essentially what a rose trellis is. So वैसा वाला pattern जब when that sort of a pattern is formed, you're saying primary tributaries will flow parallel. Okay, can you see these? These are all flowing parallel to each other. Okay, these are the primary tributaries. This is the main river. Okay, we are saying this is the main river. This one is the main river, and the primary tributaries will all flow parallel to it. Okay, and these tributaries will almost join them at another perpendiculars. Okay, their tributaries will also join them in a perpendicular fashion. Okay, so that is essentially what a trellis pattern is. Do we have an example of that? We are saying rivers in the Himalayan region usually form a trellis pattern. Okay, okay. Centripetal is another famous pattern. You say centripetal money, everything coming in towards the center. Okay, that is a centripetal pattern. So obviously you say that the river, that area, the basin, wherever these rivers are meeting is obviously going to be in a low-lying region, and the region around it is going to be at a higher level, at a higher altitude. From there, the streams come in or the rivers come in and fall into a depression or a lake. Okay, Loktak Lake is a very famous example of centripetal drainage in India. Okay, okay. Next is the rectangular pattern. It is similar. Yeah. No, it's an inland drainage. It is famously called as an, चलो यार ये word भी ले लीजिए. I am trying to remember if there are any major rivers that emerge from there. I just remember that there are rivers that go in there. I'm just trying to remember if Victoria has the origin for any rivers. Let me check once. It's been some time since I've looked at Africa. Uh, oh, hello. उसको एंडोरिक ड्रेनेज भी बोलते हैं. एंडोरिक ड्रेनेज माने इनलैंड ड्रेनेज माने ऑल द रिवर्स विल कम एंड मीट इनसाइड द लैंड. Okay, that is called as endoric drainage. Okay, so famously this centripetal pattern should also be referred, it's not centripetal, we are saying anywhere where rivers come and meet inside the inland drainage. Inland drainage is also called as endoric drainage. Okay, now rectangular is similar to trellised in a way कि we are saying tributaries meet almost at right angles. Okay, they are not essentially perpendicular or parallel. We're saying they meet almost at right angles. The reason is that the tributaries are going to follow joints, fractures, rifts जहाँ कहीं होंगे उसको follow करता है, right? ये and tributaries are usually much more widely spaced than the trellised pattern. Okay, the example is the Colorado River in USA or the Vindhyan mountain ranges. Okay, वहाँ का drainage usually आपको वैसे दिखता है. Parallel is interesting. You can see that all these rivers will flow parallel to each other. Okay, and they follow the regional slope. इसका सबसे बड़ा example is going to be the rivers originating in the Western Ghats. Rivers rise in the Western Ghats. Okay, and then there's a very short or small distance that they have to traverse through. So clearly there is no way for the rivers to be sinuous. ऐसे meandering वगैरह तो नहीं हो सकते rivers ना. Western coast तो बहुत पतला है ना. It is very narrow. So when the rivers rising from the Western Ghats go not towards the eastern but go simply towards the Western Ghats, sorry, Western coastal plains, so clearly the plain is very small. So clearly they do not have a lot of space to meander and go sinuously. So they will flow short, swift rivers straight down. Okay, so they will mostly follow, and it is uniformly sloping. So they will mostly follow the parallel pattern. Okay, rivers originating in the Western Ghats. That is a parallel pattern. Then you have the annular pattern. Okay, annular is an interesting circular. उसको circular pattern भी बुलाते. Now we are saying कि rivers emerge from the top of the mountain. Okay, mountain slopes पे develop होते. Mountain slopes alternately उसके जो base है, rock beds है, they are mostly alternately hard and soft rocks. Okay, so what happens is these rivers flow around in a circle. They start from the mountain and throughout the mountain they will flow around in circles like this. Okay, so that is an annular drainage pattern. This you will find Nilgiri's drainage is similar to that. Can you see Nilgiri's? Yeah, you can see Nilgiri's. Nilgiri's drainage is similar to that, and then you have the Sonipat dome of Uttarakhand. Okay, तो वहाँ पे आपको मिल जाता है. All right, then there is the barbed pattern. This is, remember river capture? We had done river capture very long ago. We had said one river captures the water of another river because it goes backwards. वो थोड़ा सा headward erosion हो जाता है. जहाँ से river का source होता है, say suppose we are saying, suppose this is a mountain divide. Okay, यहाँ से एक river जाती है, यहाँ से दूसरी river जाती है. Okay, suppose ये river को extra पानी मिल गया and ये पीछे mountain की तरफ erode करने लगा, तो ये mountain के through erode करके इस river का जो पानी है वो चुरा लेता है एंड सारा का सारा पानी इस डायरेक्शन में फ्लो करना शुरू हो जाता है. Remember we had done a river capture like this? Okay. So we are saying कि usually उस पैटर्न में आपको बार्ब्ड पैटर्न मिलता है. बार्ब्ड पैटर्न का मतलब होता है कि the tributaries are in a different direction from the master stream. Okay, whichever the main river is, if whatever direction the main river is flowing in, the tributaries will flow in opposite directions. Okay, that is called as a barbed pattern, and that usually develops when the river is captured and all. Okay, uska famous example in India, river capture ka famous example in India is going to be the Arun river. Okay, Arun, so you mix it with others with other Aruns, but Arun is the main river. That is going to be that one. Okay. Pinnet pattern, pinnet and herringbone are similar in the sense, similar and dissimilar in a very similar sense. We say pinnet pattern जो होता है, वहाँ पर master stream जो होती है, it flows through a deep valley, and tributaries जो होते हैं, see this is the master stream. Okay, this is the master stream. So this is going to flow through a very deep valley. Okay, and उसके जो tributary streams होते हैं, they originate on very steep slopes. Okay, very narrow valley. You have a narrow valley, and the slopes are very steep. So these rivers come and join it in this fashion. Okay, they will go and meet the river at acute angles, at very acute angles they'll meet. So you are essentially saying that you are looking for a very narrow valley and it has very steep ranges on the side and the rivers are coming down those steep ranges. Okay, that is essentially a pinnate pattern. अब इसी valley को आप थोड़ा बड़ा कर दो. Okay, instead of a narrow valley, consider a little broadened valley. Okay, consider the valley as a little broadened. You will get the herringbone pattern. Okay, herringbone pattern is also famously called as the rib pattern. You say it is developed in mountainous areas where broad valleys are flanked by parallel steep sided ranges. Okay, you're looking at something over like something like that. Now here the tributaries are going to join at almost right angles, okay? Not exactly right, but almost. And the tributaries will flow straight because of the slope factor and the small distance, okay? So they are going to flow parallelly over here and clearly almost at right angles they'll try to join, okay? This is not a parallel pattern. Remember, this is not a parallel pattern. We are saying that this is a proper herringbone pattern, okay? Where, and remember the structure and the situation also, you're talking of a broad valley and clearly very steep slopes on the sides. Okay, that is essentially what a herringbone pattern is. Now we consider two more drainage systems and ये proper definitions है आपके, तो आप इसको याद रखिए. We are saying कि sequent and insequent. Okay, these are the kind of two drainage systems that we are looking at. Sequent money which follows the sequence of which follows the slope of the land. Okay, that is what sequent are going to be. So or concordant. Concord meaning in accordance or in sync, you know, something like that. Okay, so concordant or sequent patterns जो होते हैं, those streams will follow the slope of the land. Okay, and insequent या discordant जो होते हैं वो अपनी मर्जी के मालिक होते हैं. They do not follow the slope of the land. Okay, no matter what the slope of the land is, they'll go their own way. Okay, that is what insequent or discordant drainage usually is. Okay, so let's look at the sequence streams. We say sequence streams follow the regional slope and they are well adjusted to the geological structure. Okay, so the first of these is going to be consequent streams, meaning the stream which will follow the slope of the land. Usually the consequent stream is going to be the main river. Okay, just like we consider Ganga. गंगा को कॉन्सिक्वेंट नहीं बोलना चाहिए. वी गो विथ यमुना. यमुना को कॉन्सिक्वेंट बोलते हैं. हाँ, यमुना को कॉन्सिक्वेंट बोलते हैं. वी आर सेइंग यमुना इज अ river जिसमें multiple tributaries will come and meet. Chambal, Betwa, Ken, Sindh, Kali Sindh. You know, we are looking at all these different tributaries. We are saying all these will come and meet the Yamuna, but Yamuna will follow the slope of the land. Okay, that is what it is doing. So that's a consequent stream. It is usually the very first stream to originate in a river system, and it is usually the longest of all the streams also. Okay, okay. In that particular system, it is the longest of all streams. So उसको master consequent कहते हैं. Now, subsequent streams माने जो consequent के बाद आते हैं, those are called as subsequent, है ना? So tributary stream that is formed after the master consequent stream has been established. Okay, उसको बोलेंगे subsequent streams. Subsequent माने वो जो opposite directions में flow करती है. Suppose the consequent stream is flowing in this direction. We say if the consequent stream is flowing in this direction, then the subsequent stream will flow in this direction. Okay, that will be called because it is almost opposite the what do you say, direction of the consequent stream. And but this is also following the slope of the land. This subsequent stream is also following the slope of the land, and hence it's meeting it like this. Okay. Resequent streams माने वो streams जो सबसे recent होंगे. Okay, the most recent of them, the most newer of them will be called as resequent streams. Okay, so they'll flow in the direction, but they are formed much later than the master consequent. They'll flow in the same direction, but much later than the master stream. Okay, master consequent. This is generally, I'm not asking you to remember all this, just do not be absolutely ignorant of it. You getting what I'm saying? Do not go into deep for this, but do not ignore it completely because UPSC tends to ask you such weird questions. Yes, you had a question? Subsequent. हाँ, opposite direction. Interesting, yes. But नर्मदा जो होती है ना उसको it is not उसको basically it is by itself, it is a consequent stream ना by itself. It will flow, it will be a super, it can't be a superimposed, can it? Superimposed हो सकती है क्या नर्मदा? नर्मदा superimposed नहीं हो सकती. नर्मदा को consequent ही बुलाना पड़ेगा. Because नर्मदा is not a tributary. ये जो subsequent, obsequent, resequent है, वो सारे tributaries के types है. है ना? These are all types for tributaries. Narmada has to be a master consequent by itself. It will not follow the slope of the land. Very good, because Narmada and Tapi both flow through rift valleys and they will emerge in this and they will go separately. Okay. But to say it doesn't follow and you are saying Peninsular Plateau is shifted a little towards the east and it does not follow that. But Narmada follows its own slope of land now. uh, it will flow through the Rift Valley without a problem. It is not trying to change the fact that it is flowing through the Rift Valley. It will just go by itself. Narmada is not. Yeah, in the Rift Valley also there is clearly a slope, no, which is taking it straight towards the Arabian Sea. So that is where the Narmada is flowing. It is following the slope of the land. It is not making any changes to that part. See how when you will understand what I tell you about antecedent and superimposed, now you will get the difference over there. I'll explain those streams and then let's see how you work that out. Insequent या discordant drainage जो होता है, we are saying that does not follow the slope of the land and they are not well adjusted to the geological structure. Okay, you can make out that the river is behaving differently than the geological structure. Okay, so उसका first example is going to be antecedent streams. Antecedent माने जो किसी mountain range के पहले से exist करता था. Okay, we are talking of Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra, Satluj, Tista. So all of these, Arun also for that matter. So these are all antecedent streams. Antecedent streams mane, normally what happens is that when mountains are formed, the rivers follow the slope of the mountains. Okay. Now here what happened is all of these rivers existed way before the Himalayas were being formed. So when the Himalayas started forming, those rivers started cutting through the Himalayas. Okay. Because Himalayas were not formed in a day, right? Dire dire the land was being uplifted, folded. So clearly these rivers went on cutting, down cutting very ferociously throughout that entire process of the Himalayas being formed. Okay. So they maintained their slope. They did not follow the slope of the Himalayas. They maintained their own slope because they were stronger than the Himalayas at that time. Okay, clearly. So, and even now you can make out that the river has no business cutting across such a mighty mountain and coming towards this side. You can make that out very clearly with the Himalayan rivers. But that is essentially what this is. So such streams are famously called as antecedent streams. And remember examples: Indus, Brahmaputra, Ganga, Satluj, Tista, Arun. Okay, these are all three Himalayan rivers are antecedent, and then apart from that, you have the Satluj, Tista, and Arun also. Okay, look at the other type of streams. We call them the superimposed streams. Okay, now superimposed streams का फंडा क्या होता है? That these streams are usually they inherit the characteristics of its original form on a very different geological formation. Let's consider. This is a little similar to the kind of incised channels. याद है आपको? नहीं याद है? कोई बात नहीं. We are saying, let's say this is the rock bed. Okay, we say upper part is going to be a soft rock. Okay, and lower part is going to be a hard rock. Okay, the river decides to flow through here. Okay, the river is flowing through here. Okay, what will the river do to the soft rock? It will downcut very vigorously. It will do some downcutting and form a nice deep channel. Okay, and now the river gets used to this particular way of flow. Okay, the river gets used to this. It does not have the ability to alter its own course. So what the river does is when it cuts across the soft rock completely, when it is done cutting across the soft rock and it encounters the hard rock, it will start cutting into the hard rock also in a very similar fashion that it used to do in the soft rock. Okay, because that is now its nature. That is how the river is flowing now. That is what its slope has become now, and that is how the river is doing its job. Okay, so clearly the way it was behaving in the soft rock is exactly the way the river it will behave in the hard rock. If the river had encountered the hard rock before, it would not have formed such a channel. Would it have formed such a channel? No, it is not physically possible for the river to do that. But since it encountered a soft rock before, it will form the very similar channel in the hard rock also. Okay, that is how you come across those incised river streams and stuff like that. रिमेंबर जब हम रिवर कैप्चर कर रहे थे, तो यार आप अपनी नोट्स को रेफर कीजिए, जब रिवर कैप्चर वगैरह कर रहे थे ना, तो उसमें रिवर रेजुविनेशन, सॉरी, व्हेन रिवर रेजुविनेशन होता है तो हमने कहा था कि इस तरह से इनसाइड स्ट्रीम्स या ऐसे स्ट्रीम्स बन जाते हैं. So this is similar to that. Okay, similar to that. I'm not saying it is the one, it's one and the same thing. You're saying a similar fashion. So superimposed streams are those. Okay, अब नर्मदा इसमें से ना सुपरइम्पोज हो सकती है ना एंटीसेडेंट हो सकती है. नर्मदा बेसिकली फ्लैटो में से या रिफ्ट वैली में से ही फ्लो कर रही थी. So it does not have to be a superimposed one. है ना? It is following the pattern. It is following. It is a master consequent by itself. It and it cannot be an antecedent river. It did not form way before the this was formed. Narmada is also a very old river. In fact, it's considered the oldest river in India. So no, it will go. It will be the master consequent. It follows the slope of the land. Okay, people. You guys look so saturated. Anji. There was. Yeah. So see that part. the one to the west of the Western Ghats, it submerged, it cracked and submerged below. So that is why what you see as the Western Ghats is essentially just a scarp of what used to be earlier. See, what the Western Ghats is essentially is we say that the Deccan Plateau was formed, okay? The volcanic Deccan Plateau was formed, and clearly because of the faults and all, you find the Western Ghats standing over there, okay? Now, what happened is that this part, the western side of the Western Ghats, also went through faults and drifts and everything, and that part broke off and fell into the sea, fell into the I should ideally say subsided into the sea, not fell into the sea, but subsided into the sea. So what you see is just the huge tall Western Ghats and the smaller Western coastal plain right next to it. So that is all you see. So Western Ghats is essentially just a fault scarp. Whereas if you consider the Eastern Ghats on the other side, that is a proper fold mountain. That is from way before 1 billion years ago पहले बना था. 1 billion years कितना होता है? तब तक तो इंडिया सदर्न हेमिस्फीयर में क्या, तब तक तो पैंजिया भी बना नहीं था ऐसे पूरी तरह से. So तब का पार्ट है वो. तो इतने पुराने हैं ईस्टर्न घाट्स. So वो proper fold mountains है. ये वाले थोड़े से false scarps है. This is just a false scarp. That's what we should call them. Does that answer your question? No, not completely. What was your question? Hmm. No, they're like 66 million years ago. नर्मदा बहुत 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 पुरानी. But the fault was essentially a fault existed now. The fault existed when Narmada was formed. Let me check out once how when the faults were formed. Because Narmada has to follow the slope of the land. It is not going in a different direction. Let's check over here. So yeah, Ajna, we'll check only what is going on with Narmada. Narmada antecedent है क्या? So many people are asking. It's a Rift Valley river. उसको Rift Valley बुलाएंगे. It is following this. वो geological depression. पहले geological depression था and then नर्मदा बनी. That is why it is following the slope of the land. That is how it's going. तो विंध्यास सतपुड़ास have to. अरे हाँ, विंध्यास तो काफी पुराने हैं ना. अरावलीज के बाद क्या नेक्स्ट आएगा तो विंध्यास आएंगे. तो we are looking at that major formation. So yeah. People, give me a moment. We have 2 minutes. Let me at least introduce to you India's water divide and then the Himalayan drainage. Okay. So let's understand what a water divide is. A water divide is essentially a huge wall, okay, which will divide the water drainage on two sides. Okay. So you are essentially saying that there is some sort of a mountain or a hill or something which will make the rivers flow on either side of it. Okay. Because of that water divide, the rivers or the drainage pattern or the drainage systems will flow on either side of it. Okay. तो दैट इज एसेंशियली व्हाट अ वाटर डिवाइड इज. ओके, अब अगर हमारे यहाँ का वाटर डिवाइड कंसिडर करना है आपको, तो इट इज गोइंग टू बी सिमिलर टू समथिंग लाइक दिस. लेट्स लुक एट द वाटर डिवाइड. ओके, वी आर कंसिडरिंग दिस. ये देखिए यहाँ पे इंडस का ड्रेनेज अलग, गंगा का अलग. हाँ, क्लियरली एट दिस पार्ट ऑफ टाइम. देन कम ओवर हियर, क्लियरली दिस इज द अरावलीज वाला पार्ट. तो यहाँ का ड्रेनेज यहाँ, वहां का ड्रेनेज वहां है ना. ईस्टर्न ड्रेनेज टू द ईस्ट एंड वेस्टर्न ड्रेनेज टू द वेस्ट. Okay, look at this part. This water divide curves a little over here where the Narmada and the Tapi originate. Okay, so clearly the western flowing rivers are going to be on this side, and then the rest of this is going to be the western Ghats. Okay, the western Ghats will have those major rivers. आपके जो है Ganga, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, वगैरह, all these flowing on this side. Okay, most of these will flow to the east, and the shorter rivers, swifter rivers will flow on the other side, on the western side. Okay, this is essentially what a water divide looks like. Okay, long time ago, UPSC had just given you a picture of the map of India, shown you this line and asked you what that means. And it is clear as daylight that it is the water divide, but here we are. So when we consider the drainage of India, we say that around 77% of the drainage area, which consists of the drainage of Ganga, Brahmaputra, Mahanadi, Krishna, that is all oriented towards the Bay of Bengal. And 70, look at the amount of rivers look at the amount of water that is going towards the east now. So that is almost 77% of India's drainage that goes towards this part. Okay, uh, towards the Bay of Bengal, and then around 23% comprising of the Indus, Narmada, Tapi, Mahi, Periyar systems that will discharge into the Arabian Sea. Okay, let's understand the difference between ये तीन definitions कर लेते हैं. Catchment area माने that area जहाँ से the river will collect all its water. Okay, that is going to be the catchment area for one single river. The area that it drains, जहाँ से उसके सारे tributaries वगैरह भी आएंगे, that will be called as the catchment area of that, sorry, not tributaries, only for that river, whatever water it collects from a certain specific region is called the catchment area of that river. Okay, then the area drained by a river and its tributaries, everything else along with it, is going to be called as the drainage basin of that river. Okay, so drainage basin of a river is always greater than the catchment area. Okay, okay, and watershed meaning the boundary line that separates these two. Okay, that separates one drainage basin from the other, that will be essentially called as a watershed area. Okay, like I said, we are going to look at the drainage systems of India in 4 ways. We'll study the Himalayan drainage first, the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra systems, followed by the peninsular drainage. All major rivers over there will be considered along with their tributaries. And please mind all the tributaries because they keep asking you. They keep mixing tributaries from Ganga, Brahmaputra, Indus, and keep asking you to match them or ask you if these belong to this river or do not belong to that river. And they love questioning you on the tributaries of Godavari because those are very famous, right? And you pay little attention to peninsular rivers. You're so focused on the Himalayan ones. So you pay little attention to peninsula and they keep asking you tributaries for the Godavari. And then, of course, west and east flowing rivers, they keep asking you. Somebody is going to come to relieve us. So we'll teach you on. So we'll learn until then. Okay. Yeah. Characteristics of the Himalayan drainage. We say Himalaya drainage meaning we are talking about the Indus, the Brahmaputra, and the Ganga rivers. Okay, these rivers are perennial because they are fed by melting of the snow. You know, in the summer the snow melts, so clearly you get water from there. And during monsoons it rains, so clearly the water is there. Okay, you have water. The features of this particular type of drainage are you will find very deep gorges cut through proper granite or gneiss, V-shaped valleys, rapids, waterfalls in the upper coast and stuff like that. Okay, and in the lower coast you will have flat valleys, oxbow lakes, floodplains, braided channels, deltas, everything, because you will have enough silt also. Most of these rivers are extremely long, and because they are very long, they are going to collect a lot of deposits or sediments, and that is going to be deposited to form deltas, huge spacious deltas. Okay, and famously, these rivers shift courses. By shifting courses, you mean that the river channel is going to start moving places. Okay, the reason being, and the courses are usually shifted in the lower course, because what happens is, I'm not talking of, I'm saying that the river decides to change its direction. Okay, so that usually happens when there is a lot of silt and that blocks the course of the river. Okay, so what happens is that water decides I'm not going to go through this path. It will take a least resistance path. Anything in life is going to follow a path of least resistance, right? So water also decides to do that. It decides to just skip that silt entirely and move sidewards. The problem is when these forces shift, the river does not realize that there are people living wherever it is trying to go, right? The people are residing in those places. They have their farms and villages and houses in those places. And when the rivers shift courses very frequently, that leads to a lot of destruction in the floodplains. Okay, and that is a proper. Remember how we used to call Kosi the sorrow of Bihar and Damodar the sorrow of Bengal, because those rivers were used to shifting their courses. Okay, both part of the Ganga river system, and that is a problem. And we stop here.